I've only got the one, just move it as I need to. Hang on. All right. Okay, we're going to try again. Just to see, because now I'm in the dark, dank basement and have two bars. This can work. Hear me? See me?
I can hear you. You're broken a bit, but it's better now than it was.
Okay. Yeah, I've got like one bar. Wait. Wait, I just need to get back to the two bars. Whenever I get back to the two bars, it's okay. As soon as I'm just going to move here, there'll be two bars in a minute. You just keep laughing at me. Just keep laughing at me. That's it. Perfect. Oh, there.
In case you're wondering, okay. Rebecca's got the laptop and she's moving it around like this all the time.
Okay, I'm in the perfect spot. I just can't do this for too long because my arms will eventually give out. So let's talk. Okay, tell me. You don't have to tell me Rebecca stories, Becky stories, but let's talk radio. Let's just have a fun conversation about radio now that we've got totally off track because of my internet problems. I think it's good now, right? Respond.
Okay. Yeah. No, we're good. We're good.
Yay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so what would you like to talk about, Paul? Like, first of all, let's offer our credentials. So I work in radio currently. I'm a manager of a small radio station. Paul, you?
Ditto.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay, so radio today is quite different to the was, as we know, many years ago when each of us and other people who might be watching were first in the business. What do you think are some of the major changes or major differences in radio today as opposed to what it was like when you first got into the business?
Well, the first thing you have to talk about is automation, right? I mean, and it's a yin and a yang, but the yin of it all is that the great part of it is you're no longer putting that disc down, queuing it up and getting it all put in your carts in the cart machine. You now have more time to sip your coffee and think about what your next break is going to be about, right? And so there's a yin and a yang. The yang is the voice tracking, right? And bean counters have got involved and said, hey, if we voice track evenings and all nights and we don't need these people anymore. And that's all fine and dandy, but eventually that catches up with you.
Do you ever miss though some of the sometimes I miss working with carts. I know they were a pain in the neck. One would break in the middle of a commercial and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes I miss the old technology and think it would be fun to kind of work that way again.
When you said carts, I thought you meant Carter Brown.
Oh, no, I meant the actual carts, but Carter Brown was a big part of my radio past. But
do you really? No, I don't. I don't miss that at all. Some idiot would stop the commercial, before it queued up the next time around, and then all of a sudden you go to play it and it's dead air, right? Like, some idiot would put a 30-second commercial on a 5-minute cart, right? So I don't miss those at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I think it would be cool if somebody just designed an old radio studio like 70s style and we could just go back and play in it.
Well, Gord Gibb, who just recently retired, has a complete studio in his I think it's his basement or garage, one or the other. It's got the board, the reel-to-reel tapes, the carts, the whole 9 yards.
So. Oh, cool. Does he rent that out for radio people to play? That'd be a fun party.
I'm sure he'd put you on air because he does a live streaming as well. So I'm sure, he'd put you on air for it. Sure. Just show up. Yeah. I'll give his address.
That's cool. He might not appreciate that.
Langer sent me.
But going back to automation, it has its pros and its cons, right? Because I remember I was working out west years ago when the idea of automation was first introduced to the staff I was working with, and the program director called us all into the boardroom and we all sat down and I remember very clearly him kind of walking around and us all sitting there knowing something was not good that was happening. We all thought we were losing our jobs, and eventually many of us probably did, thanks to automation. But he introduced this idea of something, that a new technology they were bringing in, and he was trying to reassure us in advance it was going to be great for us and it was going to make our lives easier and everybody's jobs would be safe, everybody's jobs would be fine. But I know I've lost at least one job to automation. A shift I worked years ago was replaced with automation. And I know that many stations tried to at least find another position for you if you were working a shift that they automated. But a lot of people have lost their jobs because of automation over the years. So, that's the downside of it. On the upside, like for me, voice tracking, I absolutely see the value in it. And when I'm voice tracking, I still feel like I'm live on the air. I'm recording it.
I've never lost my job to automation. I've lost my job for other reasons, but not automation. I remember though, I'll tell you this story. I was in Coburg at the time at CHUC, and Don Conway had said, we're gonna start doing automation. We had a really good engineer at the time, and the automation that we went with, the software was relatively easy, but we needed the hardware, and the hardware was we decided that we were going to get a CD player, and it could take 18 CDs in each player. And so I was in Coburg. Nobody in Coburg had anything like that, but we called up to Kawartha TV and Stereo in Peterborough. And when I called, I said, how much are you selling the Sony XB258, model, whatever it was? He goes, oh yeah. I said, we got a couple of them online. They go for $225 or whatever the price was. And I said, okay. I said, what if we wanted to buy it in bulk? He goes, well, how many are you looking at? I said, 18. You could just see the look on his face. I was talking to him on the phone, and it was like, hold on. He put me on hold. Somebody else come back on the phone, because I'm sure they had a conversation going, there's some idiot that wants to buy 18 CD players, right? So that was my introduction to automation at the time.
Yeah. And so is that a big part of what you do now, Paul? Like, you're on the air as well, right? As well as being in management where you are. So is automation part of what you do on a daily basis, or voice tracking, sorry?
Not on a daily basis, but I do it. I will do it occasionally, more so in the summertime when there's vacation time and whatnot. But I won't do it here. I do it for one of the other stations, along the network. So I'll do the afternoon show in Godrich or Shelburne or wherever, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And radio in general. So beyond voice tracking, we know that that's here to stay, and that's probably going to continue to change, as time goes on. It's never going to leave us now. But sort of the feasibility of radio, I from time to time will have a client kind of ask, what do you think the future of radio is? We've been asked that question for many, many years now, as everybody in the business knows. I still feel like I work in a very small market, so I still feel there's so much worth and value in radio here where I live, because it is a small market. So the radio station, it isn't just about the radio station being on the air. We are involved in the community. All of our employees live and work and spend money and play here in the community. We're out at, as many of the events as we can get to. If we were not here, I feel like it would be a big loss to the community. Do you feel the future of radio, Paul, is in jeopardy, or do you think it will just continue to change and adapt?
No, I think it's going to change and adapt for several reasons. You look back at the history of it all. When TV came on board, everybody said, oh, radio's going to die. And I wasn't around at that time, obviously, but it was going to die. Well, no, it didn't die. It just changed. And then, when MTV came along and, oh my God, radio's going to die. We're all going to watch our videos. And no, you didn't. It just changed. Right. And so MTV was the one that died. Right. Now people are saying, well, there's Facebook and there's Google and there's whatever to buy your advertising. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but that doesn't mean that radio is going to die. It just means we're going to change. That's all. Also with Facebook, don't forget, if you went into a high school room, into a classroom, it wouldn't matter what class, English, science, math, doesn't matter. And you said to them, I want everybody to stand up that's got a mother or parent or a grandparent that's on Facebook. 19 of the 20 of them would probably stand up. And if you said to them, okay, and how many of you do you have Facebook, right? And then of those kids, 40% of them are going to sit down because they don't use Facebook. And if you ask them, is Facebook your primary? They're going to sit down even more because they all go to Twitter or one of the other social medias. So who's dying, really? Is it radio that's dying, or is Facebook dying? Because Facebook's for old people, as the kids will tell you, right? So
yes, yeah, I know. Because my boys, they have Facebook, but they never use Facebook. Right. They have the accounts. And I use Facebook all the time. But I also think there's a lot of value. Like, I'll have clients from time to time say, oh, we don't use radio, we only use social media to market our business. Which again, that's fine. It's your business. It's totally your obviously up to you how you market it. But for us, we actually, as a radio station, use social media as an added tool and an added way to advertise. So, if someone buys an advertising campaign, it doesn't have to be just commercials. We can add in, we can give them exposure on our website, on our Facebook page, through our Twitter, Instagram. Social media is a big part of what we do. We can do contesting that might be on the air, but it's like a cross promotion with something that's on Facebook. So maybe on Facebook, we drive, our Facebook users to enter a contest on the radio by listening on air at certain times of day for certain cues to call. So I really feel like advertisers who use radio, but as an add-in also are using all the social media hand in hand with radio, that just gives you an extra added advantage. So I feel like social media is a great tool that radio stations are using now.
Well, and the other, like I was just saying, we were out at, we were doing the Caramba Cruiser. They were getting food for the Salvation Army. We were filling it up with food, obviously. And so we posted it up on our social media site, on our Facebook page. Facebook decided to reach out to us and ask, we can boost this for another, what was it, $35 to reach another 200 people. Well, you know what? I'll sell you an ad on the radio for $35 and I'll reach a whole lot more than 200 people. So who's the winner? If you're using social media as your advertiser, you're losing at $35 for 200 people.
Yeah,
I got more than that.
Yes, I do feel that sometimes we think there's a perception that, just because you post something on social media, like we're here right now, and there's a perception. Well, I don't have that perception. There's one person watching. I think it's my son. But sometimes thanks, Xander. But sometimes there's a perception that if we post something on social media, thousands and thousands of people will see it. Well, in reality, that's not true. There's so many things being posted on social media at once. Somebody might, quickly scan right through what you've posted and not even look at it. There's so many ads on social media now anyway, popping up all the time. I think we do tune them out quite a bit. So whereas with radio, it's the kind of thing like here in my small hometown of Napanee, my FM, even if you don't listen to my FM every single day, when you're at different businesses, like a lot of our local businesses have my FM on in the store during their business hours. So you could be walking around Canadian Tire Napanee and listening to my FM, and maybe you're not even aware of it, but you're hearing the advertisements, you're hearing the announcers, you're hearing the radio station. So it has an extra reach that way that I think people don't think about a lot either.
Also, I mean, let's be honest here. If you're advertising on YouTube and you got a video that's going to play, how many people actually watch the video, or they watch the clock going 3, 2, 1, skip, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah. Yeah. So social media, for me, my opinion is it definitely has a place in what we do in radio and can be a very valuable tool as an add-on to what we do. But I don't think that should minimize radio or what we do. I think it's still a very viable way to advertise and to get your message out.
I'll agree with you on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got one that we're going to disagree on.
We haven't disagreed yet. I don't think. I'm surprised. So the other thing, I'm not going to harp on this because everybody knows me that I'm a bit of a grammar, stickler. And so, but I do feel that broadcasting, and maybe it's just because I'm getting old, admittedly, I am getting old, but do you find that when you listen to radio or even watch television, there has been a disintegration in terms of broadcasters, and is it just a sign of the times because of the internet and we've become lazier in the way that we speak and write? And has that moved over to broadcasting now? Because I'll often hear things that drive me crazy as a listener on radio. I'll hear an announcer mispronounce a word, and I will think, how did they ever get a job, full-time job in radio, when they can't pronounce sandwich if they want to say sandwich? And I can't believe that they actually got a job. So that kind of stuff does drive me crazy. But do you feel that is it a disintegration in the way that we use the English language, or is it just a sign of the times?
So I think it's more prevalent now that we see the mistakes. And I will go back to social media. You know, when I was working doing sports down at CKWS, and I was doing it for CFFX in Kingston at the time, I did Monday morning sports. If I wrote in there, or there, it didn't matter because I was the only one that read it. It made no difference. If it was 6-2 and I said 6-TO, made no difference. It was just me reading it as long as I understood it. But today, because we have social media, because we push that stuff out, you have to be careful with it, right? And so you have to make sure that you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and before you hit send, right?
Right.
So it's much more prevalent to see those errors today.
Right.
There's also that side where, it's the sandwich. There was a guy I know who wanted to get into radio and pronounced it a winda. So I was looking into winda today. Where are you? Were you really? And I think there's words that there are words that we can't say. Each and every one of us has that particular word, right? Whether it be Mississippi or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
If that's the case, try to avoid it. The one that gets me all the time, and I sent you a picture of it today, and I scream at the radio and I scream at the TV when I see it, is the misuse of bring and take. You bring it to where you are, you take it to somewhere else, right? And I saw an ad. It was an actual poster. I don't want to say where, but it was in a coffee house. And it said, I forget exactly, what was it? I turned my phone off. Bring home the gift today or something like that. I'm going, it can't be, it's take. You're here. You're going to take it home. You're not going to bring it home unless you're already at home. Like it would be good for TV. If that bring it home today, sure, I'm at home. I will bring it home. But when I'm sitting in the coffee shop and the poster says, bring it home today, it's all wrong. And then that just leads to 5-year-old kids reading it and thinking that that's the correct way to do it. Right.
Yeah. And that was an ad, obviously a big ad that's probably part of a marketing campaign for that company. So
Correct.
That wasn't just one person who did that layout and phrased it that way. That probably had to be vetted by or reviewed by other people. And it kind of went over their heads as well, obviously. So that's in radio, sort of, I compare that to, in the old days, we had air checks every week with a program director who would listen for those things and could help us correct errors. So if the guy said window, his program director would be able to say, okay, it's window. And hopefully the person would learn and say window next time. That was the whole idea behind air checks. I don't know if air checks are a thing anymore. Are they? Do you know?
Well, I think it's lacking simply because a lot of it is voice tracked now, right? So we still do it here. I hear once in a while from upper management, not very often, but occasionally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it still happens in some spots, but certainly not nearly as prevalent as it once was. So.
I remember years ago when I worked in Kingston, you were telling a Kingston story earlier. Jim Ferguson was my program director, great program director. And I was pretty new to radio. I think I'd worked maybe at one station and then came back to Ontario to work in Kingston. And we did regular air checks with Jim. And he was very good at air checking. So I remember there was one thing that was always coming up in my air checks. And like, it was, I'd listen back at that time. It was on cassette, right? You put your cassette in at the start of your shift, record your show. Every time you turn the mic on, the cassette would roll and record you. And then you take that into your air check with your PD. Well, I constantly, every week in our air check sessions, there would be this noise and Jim and I would be like, what is that noise? And it was like this sound, this, incessant, like tap, 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 tap. And I'm like, it must be the machine. Like, could it be the cassette machine, or is it like something? And week after week after week, that was the big mystery, right? In all of my air checks. What is that noise? It was only in my air checks. Yeah. So every time I was on the air, I had my pen on the board and I was going like, as I was talking, tap, 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 nervously, I guess, with my pen. And it took a long time, but finally Jim figured it out. And thankfully, but I didn't even know I was doing it. So, that's the whole idea. The point of air checks there, that's was me and my, stupidity, just tapping my pen. It's not, but air checks, I think, are very valuable because there are things that we all do. As you said, there are words that each of us mispronounces and just can't say correctly. That must be just a human thing, I'm sure. But an air check can at least help you correct some of the major things that might be noticed. But here's my next question. Is that even important to anybody anymore? When I'm on Facebook and I correct someone's grammar or spelling or mispronunciations, there's always somebody who will say, Rebecca, relax. Who cares? If it's sandwich, who cares? And I get that. I probably shouldn't care. My life would be far less stressful. But maybe most people,
and you'd have more friends.
And I'd have a lot more friends, possibly. I don't know about that, but do you think it's just that we should we not care about that stuff as much anymore?
No, I think we should. I always correct people when they write a lot as one word. It's 2 words, a lot. So I always correct them on that. The sandwich thing, I mean, my grandmother used to call it a sandwich,
Right, but she wasn't on the radio.
No, that's true. The other thing is, you talk about air checks. The thing to watch for is mispronunciation of towns in your area, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to get some town in Alberta all wrong. Who's listening?
Yeah.
But when it's the town that's 30 miles down the road, it's rather important that you call it Napanee and not Napanee, right? So
which happens.
Yeah, right. So
especially because in our company we have, remote announcers all over Ontario. We have stations all across Ontario, so we share resources and announcers, which is great. But that is one, I think, challenge, is that if you're voice tracking for another market, and when I'm voice tracking for other markets, I try to be as careful as I can. If I don't know a place name, I just try to leave it out. I talk about something else, because I know if you're living in that town or city and have been forever, and you hear an announcer on your local station mispronounce it, it is very frustrating. And then you're like, what? It jumps out at you, right? We have here, sorry, I said I would give you lots of time to talk, and I'm just like incessantly talking.
Well, no, but I was going to say, we do the same thing in the sense that we will do commercials for other markets, so that my voice never airs here. I'm never going to finish my break and my spot start, which is a good thing, right? That's the power of automation. That's the good thing, the yin and the yang again.
Right.
So I will do stuff for Goderich, let's say. Well, the town is called Goderich, not Goderich, and people will call it Goderich. If you were from Cornwall or from Thunder Bay, right, you might get it wrong. But they do send pronouncers very, very quite often. Make sure that you're absolutely correct in doing that. So.
Yeah, that's good. We do that with our company too. But pronunciations, one drives me crazy here. And it's not, you will agree, most and villages and cities across Canada have at least one Dundas Street. Dundas, right? Dundas. Toronto has a Dundas Street, does it not? So quite often I will hear announcers, and this is one of those things that drives me crazy, say Dundas, like Dunduss, Dundas. And I am constantly amazed that anyone, anywhere in Canada at least, doesn't know when they see the word Dundas how it's pronounced. But I hear it a lot. A space LOT. A lot. So, but again, I don't know.
For those that are watching the closed captioning, it's ALOT.
Well, just to make you feel better, so I'm doing that right. But yeah, and again, I know I'm picky, but I mean, I've been in radio for a long time, and I also am a writer. So those things are important to me. And when I listen to radio or watch television, I expect the announcers, the broadcasters who are being paid to do that for a living, I expect them to be able to pronounce things correctly. And when in doubt, leave it out, which was one of the first things I learned at Loyalist College many years ago. And again, I don't mean to sound like I'm preaching, because I make mistakes too. Everybody does. But there are some mistakes that I just think are inexcusable and are just laziness and are maybe just part of the way the world is going now.
Mark Potter asked a good question, and I thought it was pretty funny. So I'll let you share the same story. Yours is going to be different than mine, obviously, but the funniest thing that happened to you on a live remote.
Are you asking me for a story right now?
Well, I'll do my story first, and then you can sit and think about it for a minute.
I do have one. I do have one that I just thought of. So you go ahead, though.
When I was in Kingston, it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was the weekend in which the Jays were in Detroit and lost their 3 games. So that's how long ago it was. And at the time of the station, we used to have this modeling agency send models out to remote with us, and they would hand out pamphlets or goodies that we had, what we were flogging, whatever. It was the cheese festival that was happening at the Memorial Center, Wine and Cheese Festival at the Memorial Center. And it was the old Memorial Center, obviously. And the young girl that I had with me was like 18 years old, and she was from Kentucky. Her dad was on an exchange with CFB. And she still had the thick accent and the whole 9 yards. And we had a 6-hour remote. Now I'm sitting down, she's standing. And as she's standing, she's starting to stretch her knees and her legs, and the calves getting tight and whatnot. I said, having a hard time standing for this long? She goes, yeah. And the thick accent, right? She goes, yeah, it never, ever bothered me before. I don't know why it's so uncomfortable today. And we were standing on the plywood, but I said to her, well, it's because you're on ice. No, we're not on ice. And I said, yeah, no, really, we're on the ice. And she couldn't understand that. It's 20 degrees outside. It's sunny. How could there be ice? So in between breaks, I walked over into the corner because they use square boards. I walked over into the corner where it's round. I said, here, put your hand down on the. Well, she couldn't believe that. She was just dumbfounded by that. How do you get ice in here when it's so hot outside? It was the thick accent and the stupidity of understanding that there's ice in a rink. Now that they have a hockey team, I'm pretty sure that they understand that now. But it was pretty funny back in
I was just at the old Memorial Center yesterday, in fact, watching a kids' hockey game. That was pretty cool.
They still run? Is it still running? I didn't know that. I thought they tore it down.
I think it was the old Memorial Center I was in, because it was that's the Kingston. What was the Kingston Canadians used to play there, right? Did they the original?
Yeah,
one? Yeah. So I was there. It was pretty cool. It's pretty smelly. It smells like hockey bag in there, but it was cool to be in there again. So I have one remote story that jumped into my brain when you asked about remote stories. When I worked in Ottawa, you're an announcer, that you get the note that you've got a remote. The salesperson needs you to do a remote at this location on this date. So mine was for a new paint store that had just opened in Ottawa. So all I knew, they give you the address and, the client name, so you can connect when you get there, and you hope that the salesperson will show up to do a little bit of connecting as well with you when you get there. But anyway, I show up in the station vehicle to this paint store, and as I'm driving there, like I'm following the directions, and it was long before GPS and all of that. I just kind of had the directions, and I'm like, I must be in the wrong area of town, because I was in kind of a residential area. It was all houses. And I'm thinking, there can't be a paint store here. I must have the wrong direction. So I'm driving around, and I think that was even before really people had cell phones. So I couldn't call anybody. I was just on my own to find this place. So I'm driving around. Finally, I find the address, what I think is the address. And I kind of pull up in front of the house, and there's the house and a driveway. And in the driveway are about like 500 cans of paint all stacked up in the driveway. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, is this where my remote is? Like, it can't, So anyway, I pull in, and this guy comes out, and I said, hi, I'm looking for, this address, this whatever paint store. And he goes, yeah, you got the right place. And I'm looking around and thinking, well, this is your house. And I said, okay, well, I'm here to do the remote for the radio station. And he says, okay, great. Well, I want all of this paint to go today. His driveway, little area of Ottawa, with like 500 cans of paint and me. And that day, one person came and they bought a yardstick. And that was the one thing that was sold at the place. So that poor guy did not sell any paint, but he sold a yardstick, and he paid for a remote from the radio station in Ottawa. So that's the one remote story that always jumps out for me. Location, location, location is very important.
Do you have a bad caller, like a bad stalker story?
Not really a stalker, but well, there, of course, over the years, there's different people that might have called, and people feel that they know you very well when they listen to you on the radio all the time, but they don't. You may have never met them. Years ago, when I worked in Prince Edward Island,
but hold on, back up for a moment though, because you've struck something there. You say that people think that they're friends of yours, but they're not really because they don't know you that well. But that's a good thing. That shows that you're doing something right on air. If they think that you're their friend, that's a good thing.
Sure. Yeah, and I didn't mean to say that listeners are not my friends.
No,
all listeners who will take the time to listen to me are friends in that way. But I mean, you don't know them personally, so it can sometimes be a little weird if somebody takes it a little bit too far and starts calling you all the time and wanting to talk about personal things and things like that when you're on the air. That's where it kind of goes over the line a bit. But there was a woman when I worked in Charlottetown, and this was many years ago, the first time I was there, because I was there 2 different times on the air. And so she used to call maybe once every couple of weeks. And again, back in the day, there was no call display. You didn't know who was calling. You didn't, you had to answer the phone and you wanted to answer the phone every time it rang when you were on the air, and you were live. It wasn't automated. So you were in the studio, and there was this woman who started calling, and I'd never met her. I don't know her name, don't know who she was, but she would call me, and she absolutely hated me for some reason. So I would pick up the phone and go, hello, answers, and she would say, hello, Rebecca. I'm listening to you today. And I would be like, oh, okay. And right after a while, of course, I knew who it was. And I'd be like, oh, okay, here we go. And she'd always say something really horrible to me. And she would always end with, she would say, I don't like what you're talking about right now on the radio. And I'd say, I'm really sorry to hear that. But somebody else is up next after me, so maybe you'll enjoy listening to them more, whatever you would say. And then she would always end with, why don't you go back to wherever you came from? Right. So I don't know if she knew that I wasn't from PEI originally or what the problem was, but she disliked me very much. And I'll never forget my very last shift at the radio station. That was my first time there. And she called and yelled at me. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, you're in luck, because I am going back.
Today's your day, lady.
Yes, after this shift. And then, of course, I never had to worry about that again. But yeah, so that's never really had any stalkers, I don't think. There were, from time to time, different people that would call that might be interested in meeting in person and that kind of thing, but I never went there. What about you?
So I'm 19 years old. I'm working overnights in North Bay, and it's 2:00 in the morning. When the phone rings, you answer it, because that could be the only person you're going to talk to tonight. So I pick up the phone. Where are you going? I pick up the phone, and this woman is whispering, hi, how are you? I'm going, I'm good. You? That's great. So you're new to the station, eh? And I'm going, yeah. And I'm just thinking it's 2:00. She doesn't want to wake anybody up in the house. No big deal, right? So we chat for a while. She goes, where are you from? I said, I just came from Timmins. I was up at our sister station in Timmins. Originally, I'm from Belleville. She goes, I'm from Madoc. And I'm going, really? And then you're in North Bay? She goes, yeah. And she goes, my mom and dad own a motel in Madoc. I'm going, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, right out of the blue, click, gone, right? And I thought, wow, that was odd. All right. So 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour goes by, whatever. It's the middle of the night. Phone rings again. I'm picking it up. So I pick up the phone. It's her again, whispering, hi, I'm back. And I'm going, oh, hey, that's great. Where'd you go? She goes, oh, the nurses came around. I'm going, I'm sorry, pardon me. What was that you said? The nurses came around. So anyway, turns out she was in the hospital, but in the hospital, it was on the hill. And I had no idea. I'm still new to North Bay, pretty much.
Yeah.
On the hill was the psych ward. And so when the nurses came around to do the rounds, she had to get out of there and get into bed to pretend that she was asleep so that she could come back to the phone and dial it up again, right? But I didn't know that until Bob Woods, who was the morning man, came in. I said, I had a call last night from this woman that said she was on the hill. And he starts laughing. He goes, you don't know what that is, do you? I said, no, I know it. Yeah, that's the psych ward here in town. It's up on the hill. And it was up like on the hill going out of town, all the way out of town. It's not there anymore. But
Yeah.
part two of the story. So in June of 1980, so that was in 79, in 80, I went to work in Belleville overnights. And when I first got to Belleville, I barely did overnights because everybody was on vacation and they bumped me up to do everybody's shift. So one day I show up at work and the receptionist calls me up. She goes, Paul, you got some mail. And I'm going, here? Like, okay. I show up and she gives me a postcard. And it's a postcard of the motel in Madoc that this woman's parents own. That's stalking 101.
Oh, wow.
So see if you can top that one.
I can't top that one. I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to try to top that one.
You didn't have anybody from the Hill call you?
Have you ever have you ever dated anyone who was a listener? Like you met them because they were a listener? Oh my gosh, that's quite.
Next question, please.
That quite. I'm guessing the answer is yes, you did. Oh, okay. There are some topics we will not broach. Okay.
No. I don't have a problem with it. Sure, I have.
So
yeah. Not because they phoned the station, but probably because I've met them somewhere outside of the station. And, they said, "Oh, hey, I've heard you on the air," whatever the case may be.
Right.
But not because somebody called and said, "Do you want to have a coffee?"
Okay, interesting. Just wondering.
You?
Yeah.
Huh.
I once in Ottawa many years ago, and I mean I was single, so of course if a guy there's a guy that called me quite often. I was doing evenings then, when evening shows were still live, and he was very nice, and we chatted quite a bit. He would call and say hi, and then one night finally he asked me out. I can't remember his name. I can't, there was one date, as I remember, but I asked him to meet me sort of at the station during the day on a weekday. Kind of, we went for lunch or something so that at least there were people around and all of that. But not my type at all. And it was in the day before, video and chatting and Facebook and all of that stuff. So I had no idea really. Neither of us knew what one another looked like or anything. We just knew each other's voices, which can be very romantic and turn into something very good. But in that situation, it did not. It did not go anywhere, which was okay. So, yeah, I guess I did once go on one lunch date with someone who listened to me on the air. But I think that taught me a lesson.
We have a mutual friend, and I'm not going to say who went on a date because of what she sounded like on the phone. And I warned them beforehand. I said, you know what? You have a picture in your mind, because we all do. If we talk to somebody on the phone, if we hear somebody on the air, you and I, people will come up and say, oh, you're not anything like I thought you would look like. Now with social media, I mean, it's a little more prevalent of what you look like around about the town. People go, oh, I've seen your picture on Facebook or whatever. But this is prior to that. And our friend went out on a date, and I said, be careful, because it's not going to be what you think. Oh, no, she's already described herself. And I'm going, all right, fine. And so he brought her back to the station, and we had a video camera. I could see who was at the door and wanted to come in. And I was laughing long before they even made it to the studio, because she didn't look anything like what he was expecting. So,
well, that doesn't mean she wasn't a great person, Paula. That they
absolutely. I didn't say that. I'm just saying it wasn't what he expected. That's all.
I understand, and that's yes. I understand totally. Yeah, I understand that for sure. I've been in radio forever, and I could hear someone's voice, and absolutely I get an idea too. And then if I see their picture, I can be surprised, not shocked or disappointed, just surprised that they look differently to what I do. Get an image in my mind as well. So absolutely that happens. Yeah. I feel like Ted Bradford is waiting in the wings somewhere, and I wish he could click to join the stream if he's watching, because Ted may have some things to contribute to the conversation as well. But he messaged me on Facebook, which that's why I looked like I was zoning out there a few minutes ago. I was checking my phone because Ted sent me a message to say he's watching and commenting, but I haven't seen a comment yet from Ted. So, you know Ted, right?
Oh yeah,
Did you
yeah,
work
yeah,
with-
yeah. I
Did
worked
you
with
guys
Ted.
work together somewhere
Yeah,
along the way?
we worked in Belleville together.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Ted's favorite story to tell about me is, as you know, when the station moved downtown on South Front Street, we were on the 4th floor, and so I went all the way down to the bottom floor. We all had a key to that front door, and we had to ride the elevator up, and you had to be buzzed in. And so I rode the elevator down 11 o'clock at night. Anna Zanetti is working overnights. We both know Anna.
I know Anna, yeah.
So Anna's working overnights. Ted's just been hired on. He's going in for training for the overnight shift. I open up the door. Here's Ted standing there. He goes, yeah, he says, I'm supposed to meet Anna Zanetti here. I said, oh, yeah, all right. There's the elevator, 4th floor. I knew he couldn't get past the next door unless he was buzzed in, right? So she was safe. No big deal. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Ted can't believe that I let him ride the elevator all the way up to go see Anna Zanetti. Oh, I thought it was fine. She's safe. If she doesn't buzz you in, you're not going anywhere, buddy. So
yeah. Yeah. As you tell that story, and we should probably leave soon because it's been, I don't know how long now that I finally got good internet and found to go down in the deep, dark recesses of my home to do this. It worked, which is great. But when I worked in, again, another Charlottetown story, I loved working in Charlottetown radio and have a lot of good stories and fun stories from back then. But I was in a play one Christmas with the local theater group, and we had our cast party. And so we'd had a few drinks, all of us. And in Charlottetown, you know, you walk everywhere. It's a small town. So the cast party ended and it was like 1 a.m. or something. And me and a couple of the guys from the cast decided we were hungry. We wanted to go to get some pizza. One of the guys had a cooler with some beer in it that he'd had at the party. So we went walking around Charlottetown at 2 o'clock in the morning to try to find some pizza. So anyway, we get to this pizza joint, which I believe was owned by one of the guys from Trailer Park Boys, a pizza joint years ago in Charlottetown. This was before Trailer Park Boys fame. And he was inside, but the door was locked. It was closed. And we were like banging on the door, just trying to get some pizza, right? We're like, please just open and give us pizza. And so anyway, this guy really nicely gave us a pizza. He just had a pizza there. And he's like, we're closed, but here, take this and go. So we left, and we were like, now where do we go to eat the pizza? And I said, well, the radio station is right around the corner. So let's just go there. You know, at least it's warm. It was wintertime. So they're like, perfect. So we go in, we have to go up these old stairs. And it was like, you know, by that time now it's getting close to 3 o'clock in the morning. And we go upstairs and we're sitting out in the hallway, and the guys both had coolers. So they're sitting on coolers and I'm standing there and we're eating pizza and everything. And we're there and we're chatting and having a beer and everything's great. Nobody's around. There's no all night show or anything. So, and it was like a Friday night, I think. Anyway, so then at one point I'm like, oh man, it's like almost 4 a.m. We better go and get out of here and, you know, get home and get some sleep or whatever. And I said, I'll go call a cab. So I ran into the production studio to get the phone and call the cab on the phone. And the guys were still sitting out there finishing their beer in the hallway. So unbeknownst to me, what was happening in the hallway was Greg, the morning guy on one of the two stations, comes in to work for the morning shift. It was like 4:30, 4:45 at that point. He comes walking in. Well, he comes in, sees is in the hallway, these guys sitting on coolers drinking beer. And he kind of looks at them and goes, hey. And they go, hey. And he goes, how you doing? And he kind of continues on. He doesn't see me. He doesn't know I'm there at all. He walks on through. He goes right down to the studio, picks up the phone and calls the cops. He's like, there's a couple of guys here. They must have broken into the radio station and they're sitting on coolers drinking beer. And so the cops are like, okay, we're on our way. Click. I come out of the production studio. Greg doesn't see me come out of the production studio. I say to the guys, okay, cab's on the way. Let's go. They pick up the coolers. We go down the stairs. The cab is right there. We hop in the cab and take off. And I often wondered if we'd had an aerial view, like a drone that could have been overhead of the radio station. You would have seen a cab pull up and us run out and hop in the cab and go around the corner. And then a cop car pulls up right behind the cab. And these two police officers come running into the station to talk to Greg. And he comes out in the hallway and then he's like, they're gone. They were just here. They were right here. Right. And I'm gone. And so anyway, the following Monday morning, the manager of the station calls me into his office and says, so anything you want to tell me about the weekend? I'm like, no. I'm thinking, how would he even know, right? And he's like, yeah, well, we had the police here on the weekend. And I said, oh, what happened? And he said, well, there's apparently somebody broke in and they were like eating pizza and drinking beer in here. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was me and my friends. It wasn't a break-in. We were just, and then he said that the police officers actually found the pizza box in the garbage can, and they took the pizza box with them to investigate and try to fingerprint the pizza box to find out who. Nothing was stolen, nothing was broken or vandalized, and everything was locked up. But yeah, so that was one of my funny late night radio stories that I'll never forget from my second home, Charlottetown, PEI.
I've told this story before. I was working overnights in Timmins, and at 3:00 in the morning, they gave us a bit of a break. They gave us the album hour, and we put an album on. We'd let it slide all the way right straight through to the end, flip it over, play the other side. Give you about 45 minutes, 50 minutes of a break to wander around and get a coffee and do whatever, right? So this particular, and we had to read the news overnight. So 3:00, I read the news, no big deal. Start the album hour up. And I had a coffee. I took a sip of my coffee and I put it back down and I sat back in the chair and I put my feet up on the console and gone. I was gone for about 45 minutes. So when I wake up, there's the album going. So the phone is all lit up, but they don't ring in the studio. Nobody knows that, right? They think it rings. It doesn't ring. It just lights up. It's pretty lights like a Christmas tree. So finally, I hit the commercials. I play another song. The phones die off. I realize that, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, blah, blah. I'm in the 4:00 news now. I'm reading the 4:00 news. Who shows up? Our morning man. And it's way too early for him. So when I finish the news, he comes in, he goes, have a little nap, did we? I said, yeah, I did. I said, oh, I'm done. I'm toast. I'm 19 years old. This is my first job. I think I'm going to get fired. And so he goes, he's laughing. He goes, yeah. I said, how did you know? He goes, well, the cops called me at home. And they thought maybe you'd had a heart attack. So they wanted to know if I should break down the door. And he goes, sure, go for it. So they didn't. He says, I got a key. Wait. He says, I'll be down there in 10 minutes. So by the time that he arrived, there I was back on air again. But it was a nice little nap. I felt restored. I could go all day.
Well, and now I know why you prefer automation to the old
style.
Oh,
absolutely.
Because you can have naps and just automation can let it roll. Makes sense. Well, Paul, this was very interesting and a lot of fun. I'm glad. Sorry about my technical difficulties at the start, but we figured it out. I just have to be down here in the cave and I can get the internet and Wi-Fi is good down here. So we'll know that for next time. And maybe next time we can get a few more radio people to jump in and join us, which would be nice too.
Sure, I'm game. You let me know.
All right, I will. Watching and have a great Sunday.